And now we move on to an accessible city transport projects, 1 Hospital Corner and 5 Morehouse Hagley. And I think for this one we have got Tim Cheeseborough back and Terry Howes. So. Thank you. Now, just before I get, well, maybe if we get a mover and a seconder for the resolution. Although I was going to ask first about the decision-making framework for this, because one of the things that I still haven't got my head around is what part our public engagement has in the decision-making tree, and then what we decide then as a council. What then what happens? So does the minister make the final decision, or is it a part of the chapter of the Central City Recovery Plan? I mean, I still haven't quite got it in my head about the decision-making tree. And I worry too that about the consultation process. Normally, when we're undertaking a consultation, we've got an obligation to put options out there. What options have we considered? We can have a preferred option, but it looks as if there's one option for the bus interchange and one option. Morehouse Avenue, Hagley Ave changes. And because, we're not, it wasn't clear to me whether we've engaged fully in the right process. And then it seems to me that, again, that there are particular people that have an interest in the subject. Obviously, the people who live in Hagley Avenue, people who use the Hagley Avenue facilities. There's a school there, there's a netball courts, and then there are a number of community groups that use the netball courts for various meetings and things like that, and at different times. So, so I know I'm not putting this very well, but what I'm trying to establish is what is the decision-making framework, and is there room for us to be having a little bit more consideration of what the options are?
So I'll try and cover back all those points for council. So I suppose there are two, and I see Mr. Pizzy in the corner who will leap up and throttle me at the point I depart from.
That's why I told him to stay over there.
Yeah. I can see him coming before he gets to me, and I can run. So fundamentally, obviously, we've got a series of responsibilities as the road controlling authority. And normally when we would be doing any significant roading works, and particularly where we're talking about things such as the conversion of streets, changing of parking, we're required to consult on the particular responsibilities we have as the RCA. Overlying that at the moment is we have a recovery plan. So an accessible city is part of the Central City Recovery Plan. So it's an overriding statutory document, and the council's not allowed to be inconsistent with that. And I think I recall that when we had this discussion back in May, I think we just commented that we were in this sort of strange position where we were expected to go out and consult with our community. We wanted as council to go out and consult with our community, but our ability to give effect to everything the community wanted would ultimately be limited by the fact that we had to give effect to the recovery plan. So, for example, the recovery plan says that Chewham Street is going to be one-way east. We could consult on that, but we couldn't reach a conclusion that was different to what the recovery plan outlined. So a lot of our work is more focused less on what the outcomes are going to be, but more about the detail about how we give effect to those outcomes. And I think that's how staff, particularly as we've thought about our consultation program, that's how we've tried to explain it. We're really dealing with the how. Now that may feel a little disempowered in some respects, but that's the nature of what the recovery plans sometimes do to us. So we will be going out and we will be consulting, but we will be consulting in the context of, well, actually, this is the broad church of what is going to happen. We do have to give effect to the slow streets. We do have to give effect to the 30 kph. We have to give effect to the super stops in Chewham Street, and they are identified as being in that location. And we have to give effect to the one-waying. We have to give effect to a whole lot of other things in the central city, but those are the ones which are relevant at this point. So our consultation is basically formed about how we best work with our community to inform them of that, take their feedback while still being able to recommend to council to give effect to that. So that's basically really what we have to do through this program. So we've also know that there's been discussion about, would the minister use his powers to change some of the decision-making processes around some of those RCA responsibilities, and that is specifically in respect to what he believes needs to be done to help him give effect to the outcomes that the Inaccessible City Recovery Plan has outlined. So that is really, as we've said, around the conversion to one-way, so the changing of two-way to one-way, and equally in Litchfield Street going from one-way back to two-way, changing the speed zones in the central city, and then introducing the shared street model. So those are things that he's particularly looking at.
But they're not the issues that we're addressing here.
No,
so I know they're related, but
yeah.
the giving effect to the one-way into the city through Chewham Street, not that I agree with one-ways, but we know that we have to do that. But to have the bus coming the other way is something that, that I know a number of us feel really uncomfortable with. And the process of shutting down the entry to Hagley Avenue and essentially turning it into a one-way is not something that's been raised in the public arena before. So this will be the first time it will be out for public consideration. And it wasn't, specified in the Central City Recovery Plan or the Accessible City chapter as being part of that whole network of transport. But I understand why it's being proposed, but it is the first time that it's been put out there, and the pressure point being further down the network that you're trying to resolve does make it look like the total focus is on, the netball courts on a Saturday, so for 6 days of a week we get a change for the seventh day. For an extra 23 parks, but I know that it's designed for an impact further down in terms of relieving the pressure on cars coming down that street. But it's all of us have just got memories of the buses coming the wrong way out of Litchfield Street, and it's really hard to psychologically, and I know it was turning against the normal direction, so it was on the right-hand side of the road when you'd expect it to be on the left-hand side of the road if it was a two-way. So, but that's the only thing about the change at Chewham Street that would be on the correct side of the road rather than the right side of the road, because it would be on the left-hand side of the road. But it just seems to me that there must be another model, and it just doesn't, So, I mean, we can't slow the process down for a lot of reasons, but I just wonder whether we need to engage the Environment Committee in a way that, again, gets them consulting or engaged in this next part of the public process, so that stakeholders have got the kind of link into the governance of the organisation at the time that this is out for consultation, so that we can really get the core stakeholder feedback into the transport or the Environment and Transport Committee early in the process. If you see what I mean, what I'm trying to do is to find a better way for us to be engaged in our governance role right throughout this next period. But other people have got, there's Vicky and then Tim.
So can I just make some further comment?
Yeah.
So I've talked with Terry and Tim around some of those issues, and we certainly are about to start community consultation, and they start on Saturday. And it is about actually beginning to have that conversation with the affected community, and I think it's important that we do that. Yes, we do have a very strongly preferred model, because I think, as you've rightly pointed out, none of these actions and none of these elements of the solution actually exist in isolation. They're a very integrated set of changes, and it's not going to be easy to plug and pull different solutions, because the whole ball of wool starts to unravel quite quickly. I think we'd be certainly, it was maybe an opportunity for us to say, actually, are there key stakeholders in there that we could get into the room with the Environment Committee through this process, as well as starting that broader public process? So I think that could happen quite quickly, because there are, as you rightly identified, a handful of very key stakeholders in there, and to get them sitting down with the key staff and with the committee at the same time would be a good thing to be doing. So that's an action I think we could certainly take. I perhaps would slightly disagree with you in terms of, I think that I can understand councillors' reactions to the buses and going the wrong way or the correct way in Tuam Street. If your only image of the only other option that you see or your experience has been the old Litchfield Street solution, because that was a very poor solution. I think this is fundamentally different. You're taking the buses around from Antigua Street. They're not turning across pedestrians in that sense. They're turning into a dedicated lane space with a solid median separating, and remembering that the vehicles coming the other way will be travelling only at 30 kilometres an hour. So you've actually got that fundamental change in the speed space.
You mean the law will require them to travel at 30 k's?
Yes.
Slightly different.
But actually, because it's actually, and look, again, I suppose it's a threshold point in the network, so I suppose it's a point, and Tim may be able to comment, that you would actually manage, or Terry.
Yeah, I think just picking up Mike's point, the previous issue we had around the existing bus interchange with the buses turning against the traffic, actually that happened right in the middle of a one-way street along its length. Actually, this is actually not in that situation. The far end of Tuam Street next to Rickerton, the Rickerton Road is two-way. It will still feel sort of two-way in that first section before it then goes to one-way. So it's a much more logical place to, if you're going to do something like that, to be able to do that.
Yeah. Vicky and then Tim.
I'm struggling with this public consultation as well, just in terms of what we're consulting on. So we've kind of got locked and loaded the one-way, two-way, the super stops and the speed limits. What will people tell us that we can change?
Tim to answer.
Well, the consultation literature will invite people to comment on the changes to parking, which clearly is a particular issue around Hospital Corner, and there are some parking effects both on Hagley Avenue and around the Litchfield, around the Morehouse Lincoln intersection. The proposals to, for instance, rationalise the Litchfield, the Morehouse intersection with Hagley Avenue. Again, the proposals for how we might rationalise that intersection are all matters where we will be welcoming the community's feedback on that. And so one of the consequences perhaps of not making those changes at the Morehouse intersection with Hagley Avenue there would be that perhaps we would be unable to reduce the level of traffic coming into the central city through Hagley Avenue. So there would be a balance there of the effects around that intersection versus the potential benefits further north into the central city. So those are all matters where we expect the community and especially businesses around the Morehouse Hagley Avenue intersection to have views on all of that. We expect them to have views from, for instance, the cycling and pedestrian community over whether we've gone far enough in terms of the quality of the cycling the cycle crossing there from Grove Road. The Grove Road changes will affect businesses around the Hazeldean Business Park, and so we expect to have detailed consultation with them. We will attempt to explain to them as best we're able what the wider benefits of this are for the city travel networks as a whole and within the central city. But we expect to be reporting back to the community board and the council in November on the full scope of that consultation. People will comment on the one-way, two-way streets as well. We fully expect that to be the case. But the legal advice we have here is that it is when council comes to make decisions about those matters as the road controlling authority, that's the point, as best I can summarise it, where the effects of the recovery plan then inform the council decision making at that stage.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that the consultation will do is the look and feel of some of these things. They'll be able to provide some input into that.
Tim?
I guess there's a couple of things. When we go out for consultation, how flexible are these plans? Because you're saying you strongly got this one in mind. If the public are saying that they're against a bus on Cherm Street going the wrong way, I mean, is there any flexible? Because I look at this and I see Armagh Street between Oxford Terrace and Cherm Street is a dead end. It is a dead end. If you're travelling from Antigua Street towards the river, you go in there, there's no way out. You've got to do a U-turn or park. I know the hospital's got the outpatients designed to go there, but I don't see it being an issue on the Antigua if you put the bus stop there and then go around. I mean, back into on Antigua and then go around Oxford Terrace back onto Hospital Corner. I mean, the Litchfield Street was designed and endorsed by traffic engineers, and it was an absolute disaster. There's no question about it in my mind, and I just have those memories, and I realise the bus is on the correct side of the wrong street in a sense, for want of a better term, but I'm not going to support the buses in that stop on Cherm Street unless I saw some far better detailed design. But for me, that history being endorsed by traffic engineers, sorry, it's not a happening thing for me.
The detailed design of those measures around there will be independently safety audited. Some of the outline concept designs already have been. I quite understand the concerns that councillors have expressed about that. They would be the same concerns we have as traffic engineers designing those measures. Will people understand it? Will they know where intuitively to cross there? How will we ensure that the speed management there is more than just the speed limit? And so the whole design of the scheme, which we will be welcoming detailed input from the community over, will enable us to address the very concerns that you've just expressed to us now. You know, we understand how the network works, but how are we going to actually achieve that? How are we going to satisfy people's understandable concerns over how that might work? That's what the consultation from our perspective is all about. We welcome that feedback, and we will actively engage with the community over any and every detailed point they raise, because we're looking to achieve a perfect scheme for that location.
Mike?
Just following on from Tim and going back perhaps to the other Tim's more opening question, that is, how flexible is this? I think there is flexibility, but there isn't a huge amount of flexibility. I think, and I go back to my comment that this has always, even before we were contemplating this was always a gnarly intersection, and one that we had hoped to do some work on because of the hospital concentration. And I come back to that point that actually we will be seeing, you know, the works down Hagley, you know, basically 1.2k down the road is fundamental to actually making this part of it work. So we've got to be very careful that as we listen to people's concerns and look to modify, we keep the network working in balance so that we don't end up making short-term decisions that actually then don't work elsewhere in the system. So I think, as I said, so there is flexibility. That's why there's some scope, but I don't think it's open-ended in that sense.
Yanni and then David.
So I just went back and read the cost share. This project is actually the responsibility of the Crown for delivery. So why are we doing this?
Well, Councillor, I think it's the same comment I've made previously.
It's the road controlling
Council.
authority.
With the road controlling, but also we are trying to pragmatically deal with these projects. We're dealing with them between ourselves and working out where the best allocation of our resources can be. So I suppose it's the focus has been on trying to actually make an accessible city happen. It's got delayed for a whole lot of reasons, starting from the day that CCDU first published it. So it's in a little bit of catch-up mode, but it is really about trying to pragmatically make the best solution happen as quickly as we can between.
I understand that, but there's a whole bunch of I'd love for us to be doing some other projects in the cost share, but we don't do them because in the cost share, it's really clear about whose responsibility it is. What I struggle to understand is the huge duplication of resources going in with two different agencies working on the same project. It just doesn't.
I don't think that's fair. I think that what we heard from staff right then was that they're working together in a collaborative way in order to make the best of the situation that we have. So
if
Sarah is building the interchange, as I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
That is their responsibility under the cost share.
So if the Crown is the delivery agency,
it's our role to do the public consultation as the road controlling authority.
right, and so we do the public consultation, we give that to the Crown and then they go and do it. Is that?
No.
We're doing the roads.
Okay.
They're doing the interchange under the cost share.
Well, no, actually, the cost share is really clear. Project delivery responsibility is divided as follows. Crown, enhancements of roads adjacent to Avon River Precinct, Cambridge Terrace, Durham, Colombo, Armour, enhancement of the Manchester Boulevard from bus interchange, Health Precinct, Avon River, Oxford, Terrace, Chelm Street, Swap, enhancement of surrounding area, portions of St Asaph, Antigua, Montreal, Hagley and Selwyn Streets, CCC, two-way of Kilmore, Fitzgerald Morehouse, Lincoln Morehouse. So it's really clear.
Well, it just sounded to me like it was a collaborative.
Well, I think
so the other question, there was also supposed to be a business case for the bus interchange. Have we seen that? Because what I'm struggling to understand is how have we measured that this is the best spend of our financial resource, given the financial constraints we have?
Yanni, I'm going to rule that out of order. We are dealing with an accessible city transport projects 1 and 5. David.
They're supposed to have a business case.
I just wanted to sort of pick up on Mike's comment that there's limited room for change, and to me that's the issue. We're hearing a lot of comment today about buses going up the wrong way, and a lot of on Chelm Street, and a lot of potential objection to the plan, and yet you're basically telling us we can put this out to consultation, and even if we get a large volume of public opposition to it, things may not change. So I asked the question, why are we bothering to go out to consultation? Because the plan is basically there and we're not going to change much of it. I get frustrated with this sort of concept of coming up with a plan. It's not going to change much. There's a predetermined outcome, really, and we've had little say in how it's going to go, and have little opportunity to change it, basically.
I think that what we've ended up with, and it is what it is, that we have a responsibility to lead the consultation on this element of it. We are the road control authority, and so it's the appropriate thing for us to be doing. I think that what today's discussion has enabled the public to see is that the councillors themselves have got, concerns about the presentation of the options, and the presentation of the option, and but I think that what we've heard from staff is that they are all connected. And taking a network approach is absolutely the right thing for the council to be doing. And I think that enabling the community to see the nature of the challenge that is faced with trying to remove traffic from a particular area so that it has a flow-on effect to how things are managed further down means that you can't just look at how it impacts on your own local use of the road without seeing the bigger picture. But that does mean that the community like us, I mean, we are all from the community ourselves, the community might also have questions like the ones that we've had. So the debate that we're having is actually quite useful because it enables staff to see the sort of questions that are likely to come up from those key stakeholders and see different ways that we might go about answering those. But at the end of the day, the decision comes back to us, and is what I've heard. And it is only really if our decision ultimately is in conflict with the smooth operation of the Accessible City chapter that there may be an intervention by the Minister. So I think that we have to wait until we get to that point. I'm really comforted by the fact that we are going to now engage the Environment Committee in a direct discussion with the stakeholders during the consultation process. I think that gives them a mechanism to ensure that they're speaking directly to governance at the same time that they're speaking to staff through the consultation process, and I'm happy with that. So,
Madam Chair, can I assist with one comment made by Councillor Rees?
Yeah.
There is certainly not a predetermined outcome. Consultation, as for any consultation, is with an open mind to the possible outcome. It is the council's decision at the end. The range of reasonably practicable options for the council may be limited, but the consultation is with an open mind. It will come up with reasonably practical other options that must be considered.
yeah, and that's why I said right at the very end that at the end of the day, the decision comes back to the council, but a council decision not to accept the particular proposal that is in front of us may have consequences that is beyond the council's control. So I think that people understanding, and that's why I asked at the beginning what the decision-making process was, because I wanted to have that clear in my mind. And I think that that enables us to proceed in a way that for some councillors will not be ideal, but it is the way we will proceed. So on that basis, I'm going to move the recommendations, but I want to add in a provision that allows for the Environment Committee to be engaged with stakeholders during the consultation process.
Can you use the word open stakeholders?
Yes, I know that the Environment Committee will meet with interested parties. Yeah. Interested people, parties, no, yeah, interested people during the course of the engagement. Hey? They'll necessarily be interesting. Anyone who lives in that area is interesting. Anyway. So do I have a seconder for that? Tim Scandrett. Is there any debate? Yanni.
I won't be supporting this today for several reasons. The first is that actually, given our financial situation, I want to see the benefit analysis. We've heard that all options are on the table to save money, to reduce costs, and this should be part of it. We haven't seen any business case about why these projects are a priority for funding ahead of all the others that we have to do. The other concern I have with this project is this is only one project in the accessible transport, or several projects out of the accessible transport plan. There is no commitment to funding any of the phase 2 projects. You can't do one in isolation of the other, in my view. If you shut off intersections on the premise that other things are going to happen that you have no funding committed towards, I do not think that's a fair outcome for our community or for our city. We should actually know what the big picture plan is and how it's going to be funded, and a commitment to either fund that or not. But doing bits and pieces with some funding without a robust analysis, given our financial situation, why this makes sense is not something I can support today. I don't believe it's good to go out for consultation on this one option. The second reason is that This is actually a Crown-led project. And although I would love us to be doing the central city transport, and I didn't support the cost share and I didn't support the blueprint, this is actually something that the government have taken out of our hands. And if they're going to use special powers around delivering this, if they're going to be the ones that make the decisions, then I think they are the ones that should be talking to the community and to the public. For far too often in the last 3 years, we have been the ones that have to go and talk to our communities and deal with the consequences of us actually not being the decision maker. And I do not think that that is a fair situation for us to be in. I do not think that it is right that we don't have a clear, guaranteed process around who's making the final decision on this project. So to go out and talk to our community, I'm not in that space to be able to do that at the moment. There are important objectives that we need to achieve as a city. I think we all want to see projects delivered, but look at the big picture and ask yourself, is this the best use of our money? Hagley Ave wasn't even badly damaged in the earthquake. It's not a road that needs to be repaired or upgraded right now. We've got other parts of the city that we're told there's no money to fix. No money to fix our water pressure mains. That's been put on hold because there's no funding. And this is somehow a priority. You've got Hagley Park that already has a perfectly adequate pathway for cyclists, pedestrians, joggers. In fact, this is probably one of the most over-engineered parts of our city for cyclists, pedestrians, and whoever else wants to use it. It has a high level of amenity already, and we're talking about making that even greater when other parts of the city we can't afford to fix the roads properly or can't afford to fix other things. So I will not support this today. I do think it's important that we look at the big picture, and I do think given our financial situation, where all options are on the table, we need to see robust analysis of why spending this money makes sense.
There's just a couple of things that I just want to say before we put this to a vote. The first is that the challenge at Morehouse Avenue is more than the flow-on effect to the entry to the city, to the new one-way system. It's absolutely relevant, but it isn't just that. And to refer to the park in terms of over-engineering for cyclists and pedestrians, I don't know that people who find themselves in conflict with each other would agree with that. But it's not that. That's not the issue. The issue is the crossing of that intersection from Grove Road. And for a cyclist actually trying to navigate one of the busiest corners from Morehouse Avenue, Lincoln Road, Grove Road, and then through into Hagley Avenue, with the cars travelling in both directions, with right arrows, left arrows, and the conflicts that sit between the different modes of traffic, but particularly cyclists are the most at risk at that corner. I think that people will be pleased to see that there is an attempt to address that issue. So it may not be the best solution, but it is important that we have that discussion. And I don't think that it's fair to say that this isn't earthquake related because there isn't specific damage without referring to the wider network and how we get people easily into and out of the city. So I think we have to take the needs of cyclists very seriously, and part of addressing their easy accessibility to the city is addressing the Hagley-Morehouse intersection. I'm not an expert in terms of transport matters, but and I'm very appreciative of the significant amount of work that's gone into this. But I think it will be enhanced by a community consultation, and I believe the City Council is the best to lead a consultation with their community and not to have a fixed position as we go into that consultation process. And I'm really pleased that the Environment Committee, with its responsibility for transport, is able to now engage directly in that consultation process. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. And is there anyone else that wants to have their opposition recorded? So Jana Johansson and David East recorded. That motion is passed. Thank you. Um,